I want to share a story about a conversation I had one warm afternoon on a back porch in Willow Creek County. It's been 5 years, but it still sticks with me because it completely flipped my understanding of gardening, something I thought I had mastered over 25 years. I was staring at this massive kitchen garden, a real working garden feeding 13 people. I started bragging about my tomato varieties, my sweet corn, and my eggplants, as though anyone cared. The woman I was talking to, Emily, just smiled gently, the way you smile at a kid showing off a drawing. She said softly, "We don't grow most of those." I thought she was joking. After all, for over 20 years, every February, I'd pore over seed catalogs at my kitchen table with a steaming cup of coffee and order everything: tomatoes, eggplant, cauliflower, sweet corn, peppers. I'd fight raccoons in the summer, sweat through July, mosquitoes biting at every opportunity, hands and knees weeding among stalks taller than me. And for what? A couple of dozen decent ears of corn, a bushel of tomatoes I could barely give away before they rotted, a freezer full of eggplants I never ate. It was like growing a grocery store in my backyard, and half of it went to waste. So when Emily told me they didn't grow those things, I asked, a bit naively, "Well, what do you eat then?" She just looked at me with calm patience and said, "We eat what carries us through February." The community I want to take you to is a settlement in Willow Creek County, just south of the Silver Gap, where the road's narrow and you find yourself behind a horse-drawn buggy, realizing you're going to be there for a while. Rolling hills, white farmhouses, laundry still on the line in October, horses grazing in paddocks untouched by tractors for 100 years. Emily and her husband, Daniel, have 10 children, for still small, and their kitchen garden sits right off the back of their house, about 40 by 60 feet. That's it. And from that patch, plus a small potato field behind the house, they feed 13 people year-round. What stunned me was what wasn't there. No sweet corn, no eggplant, no artichokes, no okra, no fancy lettuces, no Brussels sprouts. I asked, "Emily, where's all your produce?" She laughed and took me to the cellar. Shelves floor to ceiling, jars stacked with pickles, cabbage wrapped in newspaper the size of basketballs, potatoes, onions, winter squash in crates, dried beans in buckets, carrots tucked in damp sand. Enough food to feed the family from November to April. I didn't believe her when she said most of it came from that 40 by 60-foot patch. 2 months later, a neighbor sent my wife a couple of photos. One of Emily holding a cabbage weighing over 14 pounds, another of the root cellar in January, still 3/4 full. Over 300 pounds of potatoes from a plot smaller than most living rooms. I had to sit down. I want to walk you through the 7 vegetables this community deliberately avoids growing and why, so you can rethink your own garden and stop wasting space the way I did for decades. Stick around, because at the end, I'll share a method I learned from Emily's mother-in-law, a woman of at least 75, for storing cabbage all winter without a root cellar or fridge, using only newspaper and a cardboard box. That's the reason her family eats coleslaw in March. Let me be clear, I'm not new to gardening. I've read Mel Bartholomew cover to cover. I've dog-eared 3 of Elliot Coleman's books. I've followed every extension bulletin from Oregon State to Penn State. I've tried square-foot gardening, biointensive techniques, row covers, drip irrigation, seed starting mats, grow lights more expensive than my first car. But visiting families in Willow Creek County, later in Maple Valley, Ohio, and several settlements in Indiana made me realize I had been thinking about gardening completely backward. I treated it as a hobby that produces food. They treat it as food that happens to be a garden. That mindset shift changed everything, and it didn't cost a dime. There's a local term Emily mentioned, yieldedness. It's about letting go of your own will. In gardening, it means planning what the land, the season, and your family actually need, not what you want. Every square foot must work through February, not just look pretty in July. Science backs it up. A Cornell study on caloric return per square foot shows that the top 5 calorie producers in small-scale gardens are potatoes, winter squash, dry beans, onions, and cabbage. The bottom? Lettuce, cauliflower, sweet corn. Generations of practical experience beat published studies every time. First, sweet corn. I know, it's quintessentially American. but it's space hungry, and the harvest window is narrow. You need a block of at least 4 by 4 rows for decent pollination, yielding maybe a dozen ears per plant if you're lucky. The sugars turn to starch within hours. You can't store it without freezing or canning, and even then it's mediocre. Emily asked, why give 20 square feet to one meal when cabbage feeds us for 3 weeks? A Wisconsin study confirms it. Sweet corn returns about 400 calories per square foot per season, while potatoes in the same space return over 2,000. Second, cauliflower. Finicky, needing precise moisture, cool temps, and blanching. One hot week and it bolts. One cold snap and it buttons up uselessly. They grow cabbage instead, which is virtually bulletproof, produces 3 times the usable weight, and requires a quarter of the labor. Third, eggplant. I love eggplant parmesan and baba ganoush, but it's a warm season crop needing hot nights, heavy feeding, and is prone to pests and disease. Even a healthy plant gives maybe 6 to 8 fruits. You can't preserve it well. Instead, they grow zucchini and summer squash, which produce consistently and can be frozen for winter baking. Daniel once said, a plant that gives you 6 meals is not a plant that earns its soil. Fourth, Brussels sprouts. Delicious, but take 100+ days to mature and occupy too much space. Cabbage outproduces them by a factor of 4 in stores for 6 months. Fifth, artichokes. Perennials in warm zones, annuals elsewhere. Massive plants take up space for just a handful of buds. They're garnish crops. Beautiful, but low in caloric return. Sixth, lettuce. Grown in small spring and fall successions, but the fancy mixes are avoided. Lettuce is 95% water, doesn't store, and yields minimal calories. Cabbage stores for 6 months and delivers 12 times the edible calories per gallon of water compared to lettuce. Seventh, pumpkins. Specifically, jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. The flesh is stringy, watery, and low in sugar. They grow bud nuts, hubbards, delicata, and kabocha instead. Dense, sweet flesh keeps for 6 months and feeds the family well. Patterns I noticed: 1. Plant for storage, not variety. 2. Plant for winter consumption, not summer enjoyment. 3. Allocate space by caloric return. 4. Save seeds year to year, building strains adapted to the local soil and climate. Emily's mother-in-law, Rebecca, taught me a brilliant technique. Wrap each cabbage head in 3 layers of newspaper, tuck into a cardboard box, and store in a cool, unheated closet. 30 seconds per head. No root cellar needed. This keeps cabbage crisp through March. Their philosophy is simple: grow what sustains you through winter. The biggest plots go to the highest producers, and every crop is stored with methods that need no electricity, machinery, or money. 340 pounds of potatoes from a tiny patch isn't a gimmick, it's efficiency. If you're new, start with 1 raised bed of potatoes and 1 row of storage cabbage. Tend it through the summer and marvel at how much this small shift transforms your relationship with your garden.